Welcome to Ditch Digger CEO. Our podcast today is going to we're going to be hosting an amazing guy that I've known for a while, and in the Chicagoland area, he's well known as a great entrepreneur and a business builder and a culture builder. So, Jay Laabs, welcome to Ditch Digger CEO, buddy.
Hey, good to be here, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You know what what we do here, Jay, is we want to talk to entrepreneurs that build stuff. People that understand the value of this free enterprise system that we're blessed to be part of in America today. And I've known you a while, and many of my friends are very good friends with you, including my son Austin, and know nothing but great things about you and how you build companies. So I want you to share that with our listeners today, so they get an understanding of what it takes in your world and your industry to build something that's spectacular. You've done it here now a couple times, from what I know, but I want you to go into all that. But start out with, hey, who you are and what drives you, and what type of faith and family you're about, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Excited to be here. A big part of my story is I come from a small rural town in west central Wisconsin. So I like to say I know the value of hard work. My dad made sure that I worked and supported many of his clients when I was growing up. So, I know how to, bale hay, worked on a fox farm, all kinds of interesting jobs you do in rural Wisconsin. So that's a big part of the story. But really from there, I went to school in Madison, University of Wisconsin.
Let's go back to that. Your upbringing now too. I love that. I mean, how old were you when your dad said, "I think you can handle bale hay, kid"? Or you go work for my buddy over here. You need to start milking some cows. It's a dirty job, and somebody's got to do it. And it should be you, kid. What of those conversations happened, and when did you start understanding the value of work?
Well, the reality of it is it was miserable, and I should say it was miserable at the time. I didn't understand the lessons that my dad was trying to teach me, but really for as long as I can remember, in a farming community, because whether it was for, something for my dad, or when you'd go stay at one of your buddies, homes who lived on a farm, early the next morning, you got up and did chores right along with them. That's just kind of how it worked. But, I always tell this story of one of my dad's clients had a fox farm, and those are vicious little animals. Cleaning out those cages and feeding them, that was an adventure for probably like a 10-year-old or whatever I was.
No doubt. That'd have been interesting and pretty cool, but probably a dirty job, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what other jobs did you have? Tell us the other jobs. How'd you come about those jobs? Your dad said, hey, I got a kid that likes to work, or I got a kid I want to work, or what?
Yeah, I mean, my dad just made sure that we understood the value of work. I mean, he did pretty well for himself, but he came from a cheese family where he grew up having to work in the cheese plant, and also kind of know the value of hard work. And so, whether it was, I mentioned the fox farm, I mowed, a bunch of lawns, we shoveling snow jobs. I had to clean one guy's pool, and that was awful. And so those were all jobs kind of before I became 16. But then when I got to be 16, I worked at Subway. So Gary, I can cut a mean cold cut combo if you ever need someone to cut a nice sub for you. Spent some time there, worked in restaurants, all customer service jobs. So,
yeah, and that's something. The lessons you learn there. I tell the story. I worked at a young age, from 10 years old on, doing my own, kind of my own stuff, and my dad had me working as well. But either way, I love making my own money, my own way. But some of the best lessons you learn in those low paying minimum wage jobs. And I worked in a factory for a couple of winters with a good friend of mine that was a supervisor of the factory. And minimum wage at the time I was at $4.25 an hour. And this is when I was 18, 19 years old in the wintertime, because my business had started already by this point, and I didn't want to dip into my savings. And I couldn't get unemployment. It was a blessing, actually. I could not get unemployment because I was self-employed. and I didn't realize that until I went to apply, of course, right? But either way, that was a blessing, because the lessons I learned, instead of getting an unemployment check, I got a check that ended up to be, maybe similar or less than an unemployment check, netting over a little over $100 a week. But the lessons I learned in that factory about productivity, quality assurance, were amazing. But the biggest lesson I learned, really, Jay, was this great country, America, and the opportunities that lie ahead for me. Because I listened to people from all over the world that had these minimum wage jobs, from Poland and Mexico and China, all people from all over the world, and they were working this minimum wage job, most of them, right, with their eyes wide open, excited that they're in this great country, America, and making their way, and they had visions of success, of owning their own business within a short period of time. So watching them, watching the way they thought, I was like, man, I've got the ability to pave driveways at the time. I understand it well. I speak the language better than most of these people. Not well, but I speak this English language pretty well, and I understand people pretty well, right? And so either way, I looked at it as a big blessing, and it was, because when I started, my business, when I went into my business after this, I was like, okay, I got to have a process. I've got to deliver, consistent customer satisfaction. I got to measure that. Consistent quality control. What does that look like? Safety. What does that look like? So all those things that I saw in the factory and the minimum wage job were huge lessons for me, better than any education I could have had to that point. So the same way for you as a kid, I'm guessing that there's so many little things you learned about how people did things that you can apply it still today, as I do.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm in the client service business. I deal with people in my consulting business, all day long. And I don't think it's an accident that I had all these, customer facing jobs all the way through, and just having that experience of having to deal with the public. That my dad always used to say that, actually, to me too, just like that interaction with the public, and being comfortable in those situations. You can easily draw a line from that to me ending up being a consultant.
That's cool. Yeah. And consulting, it's basically what, we have a couple of consulting businesses here that are within our group of companies, and boy, I tell you what, it's in our businesses, we focused on solving our customers' biggest problems, and understanding what kept them up at night, right? And how do we solve those problems? And we did that in our businesses, but then we actually started our consulting business outside our normal business in the same respect. Tell us about your business. How'd you get started, first of all, as a young guy, and how to get to where you are today, and understanding, the secrets of success that you look at today?
Well, when I look back at it, I had a lucky break when I graduated college. I actually didn't do well enough in college, because I was having a little too much fun to get a job on Wall Street like a lot of my buddies, because I have a finance degree. Back in the mid 90s, it turns out technology wasn't very cool. So I got into technology back then, and really paid off for me, because kind of through a series of acquisitions, I ended up working with Oracle technology. And then in my late 20s, I decided to start my own consulting firm based on Oracle technology. And I kind of go back to this small town Wisconsin thing. I kind of didn't know any better on how hard this was going to be, on what starting a business entailed. But not as many people were in technology back then, and so I had a little bit of a head start, and I'd say kind of the rest is history.
And so, what was your first product? So in the 90s, you say, what year in the 90s did you really jump off, and then tell us what the first things you thought about, and how you could serve your customers.
Yeah, in 98, I was supporting a technology called Alcar, which had, I guess, spun out of Northwestern, which was software used for strategic planning and valuation. It turns out these professors that developed it were a little ahead of their time, I think. But what it allowed me to do is, my clients were using that technology to essentially to build their 5-year plans and work on their strategy. And so at a very young, or at least professional age, I was out in many cases meeting with C-level executives, talking through their strategy and then how to translate it, into, essentially planning software, kind of before that had become a thing. And
What's that technology called again?
Alcar.
ALCAR?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so it's a technology that really built the strategy to run a company, or to create vision, execution, and 5-year plans and all that.
Yes. Yep.
And how does that, is there some similarities to that and some of the stuff you see today when it comes to the business strategy, growth strategy, and let's say the EOS system, or whatever the leadership coach, or whatever those, there's all different programs out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, now there are countless business planning solutions really out there, and so this was one of the, I'll call it original ones. All the big software companies, whether it's Oracle, SAP, Workday, Microsoft, they all have different tools that play in this space now, and many firms like ourselves, have different methodologies, different technologies, we choose to use to build different planning models, and now you get AI layered over the top of it. I mean, this space is moving really quickly, and it's a great time to be doing it. So I'm super glad I started doing it, almost 25 years ago, because now's the time.
Right. So tell us about the first business. What was it called that you started, and then where it grew to and what you did with it? I think whether it be a sale or whatever it was.
Yeah, I started this company called Bluestone International. Got some of my buddies together to be my employees. Like I said earlier, I didn't really know what I was doing, but you recruit some pretty smart people, and if you're entrepreneurial enough, you can figure some of this stuff out. And we built the business for a little over 8 years, a little over 100 people, completely bootstrapped, no outside money. And I sold that to Huron Consulting in 2013.
Huron, and they're a large Chicagoland consulting company, right?
Yeah, they're public companies. So at Huron, I spent 3 years there. They basically have 3 different businesses, and I led their technology business for 3 years. And which my firm Bluestone was basically the bedrock of the practice, or the technology practice, and I built that to a little over $100 million business in 3 years before leaving.
And then in leaving, was that good exit, or they kind of expected it, and you kind of had an idea where you're going, or was it different than that?
Well, the exit probably wasn't how I would have drawn it up. It started to get a little bit of a challenge. I wanted to move faster than they probably wanted to, and I get it. They're public companies, so they have different maybe different motivations. So I spent about a year and a half where I served on a variety of boards, primarily of other consulting firms, did a few not-for-profit things, got more involved in YPO as well. But after a year and a half of not operating anything, I decided that it was time to start another company.
Cool. And then, so you had an idea of a startup that you wanted to do. Your non-competes were done at that point. Did you have any non-competes that lasted beyond your exit?
Oh, that's a long story, Gary, to get into there. So there were some restrictions, but the main thing for me is I want to be careful in how I talk about Oracle, because we're an Oracle partner today too of my new business, but some of the innovation levels that were going on that Oracle was kind of doing in the 2016 timeframe was not going fast enough. And so when we started this in 2018, our strategy was to work with kind of all the, I'll call it the next generation cloud players. So we partnered with firms like Anaplan, Salesforce, DocuSign. That was kind of the original group of cloud players that we started working with, really because their innovation level we felt was superior, and I think the market over the last 5 years that is played out. That it was just going faster and better than what the big guys, what Oracle and SAP were really up to. So by partnering with these next gen tools, I think we've been able to grow a lot faster than if we, probably would have gone back to some of the more traditional stuff.
Sure. So this new company you started, what's the name of your company today?
Spaulding Ridge.
That's right, Spaulding. I didn't know that. All right, in Spaulding Ridge, what was the what was your vision of that company when you had the vision of getting out and starting that? How to differentiate from what you'd already built or what you'd seen in the marketplace, and then what's happened and what have you accomplished in this 4 or 5 year period?
Yeah, so what I think kind of interesting about this business is I went about it a lot differently than I did the first one. I mean, first thing we did with Spaulding Ridge was define what our values were going to be, and we weren't going to waver for them. And so we spent a lot of time talking about the company that we wanted to be when we would grow up, and I think that has served us very well. Because
so basically visualize your culture and then figure out the values, those defined values you had to live by to accomplish the culture, you create the culture you wanted, right?
Yeah, one of our values is actually culture forward, and what that means is the culture will drive our strategy versus many entrepreneurs will sit around and try to plot strategy for hours and weeks and months, where we're like, hey, you get the right people on board that buy into what you're doing, we'll figure it out over time. We might not get it right, exactly every time, but we'll figure it out. Smart people will come up with what the strategy is over time, and it's how it's played out.
I like it. I agree. I mean, I like it, and I think it. Same thing for me. My businesses early on, I didn't know what good culture looked like or bad culture. I didn't really have a clue. Almost didn't care. I just thought if I worked hard and did the right thing, good things would happen. And some of that's true, right? But when as you're hiring and really promoting and growing that business, you don't have any values that your teammates could look at to live by and grow by and lead by. You have all different types of people that think that that have a different definition of the culture, right? And I had that for the first 15, 20 years of my business. I think 15 years in, we created values, but we didn't really live by them. They were up on the wall, and if you looked at our marketing piece, you could see those values. But if you looked at our company, we didn't really talk about them, and therefore didn't live by them as much as we should have. So eventually, we redid our values, had a lot of some of the same ones, but eventually, our culture changed as we really lived by the values we believed would build the right culture. But boy, it was probably 20 years in before we really got that, and probably 30 years in before we did it really, really well. And for the last 10 years, I think we've accomplished what we want. But to start like you did, not very common. And boy, if I did it all over again, and right now when we start businesses, they all kind of have the same core values we have within a group of companies. But if I started all over, the brand new company didn't know the markets I was serving, the customer that I was serving, whatever, or did know, I would do exactly what you're saying, and it's not common. So congratulations on that. That's cool.
Well, no, thanks. So if you look at the results, we in 5 years' time, without taking outside money, we're going to do 100 million in revenue this year. So we accomplished a lot in a short period of time, and I immediately point to the values, because I hear what you're saying about hard work is obviously important, but I agree with you that kind of only will take you so far. the values give you, or at least in my opinion, that kind of flywheel effect where you can accelerate it even faster.
Yeah, because what we find, and I know you find, is you find that you have a team working in sync, expecting to go to work every day with those same values, the same culture, and you don't get any wild cards that come in the business that totally change it because they're selfish or they're just crazy, right? Sometimes in business we'll accept, if we don't have solid core values we believe in, we'll accept people that are really good at a job but not that great culturally, right? Somebody that can sell the heck out of your business and just take you to a whole other world in sales, but they're burning up all the relationships along the way in your business. Maybe the customers love them, but your team can't stand them, right? And so we've had a lot of that, right? We've had a lot of that over the years. We don't have that nowadays. I'm telling you, Austin, my CEO, and my son, who's a friend of yours, and our leaders really understand how to drive culture first. And we just don't have the craziness we once had, right? And that keeps you on course, growing faster than you can imagine, as you have. It's really simple, right? If you hire right, you mentor right, and you have a vision that aligns with those values, then good things happen.
Yeah, our whole recruiting engine is set up around culture. We're the first screen, and in a technical field, like we're implementing complicated cloud software. Most firms like us, they would focus a lot in their interviewing on the technical skills, but we don't do that. We screen for culture. Like if you can't pass the culture test, like you don't even get into the game. And we follow the humble, hungry, smart methodology from Patrick Lencioni, and we feel like that served us very well.
Would you say hungry, humble, smart?
Yes.
I like it. Yeah, I always like to term people use hungry dogs run faster, right?
Yeah.
You're hungry to compete, whether you need the money or not, or if you need them, you have a vision of success financially, and that creates your hunger, whatever it is, right? Hungry dogs run a lot faster than heavy-set dogs that ate too much.
Yeah, if your idea of a corporate career is 3% growth, like this is not the place for you. We are definitely a hungry bunch.
That's awesome. So tell me, implementing complicated software. When you think about that, I mean, we've learned a lot as Austin's built a technology business with our CEO and our team that's doing amazing things. We've learned in this technology business, we had a business, we invest in technology in our space of construction to do great things. We use technology to take dirty businesses and make them a hell of a lot more sexy. Okay, that's what we do in paving and concrete, asphalt, roofing, doors, docks, all the things we do. We say, what's the best technology and what's the best innovations that we can either invest in or create that make our businesses more productive, higher quality, and sexier, right? And so Austin came in some time ago, about 7 years ago, as he was running our national business and had this idea of using drones and artificial intelligence and all this to assess pavements across the country that we were spending tons of money on, $1.5 million a year. We weren't getting back on giving away great engineering. It was a lost leader for us. And Austin said, it's doing great stuff. We're gaining customers. We could do it way faster, way better. Our customers could be much happier with the product. And then we could, grow and scale this service. And that ended up being a company, right? Site. That company, Site, is our fastest growing company. And but Site taught us so many lessons in our service businesses, Jay, that you already know because you've been in this technology world so long. But this thing called the feedback loop, right? I mean, we cared about our customers, and we always asked how'd you like the job, this or that, right? When we did anything. But boy, in technology, you better be on top of that feedback loop to understand exactly what they're feeling on the product they're using, right? And if you don't understand that, you're gonna suck wind, right? And the feedback loop that we learned about in technology as we've grown this thing has helped us in all the rest of our businesses because we're asking those questions much faster. We want to check out the product now. Well, walk the job with us. What do you think? What do you think? And again, some things that we learn in the technology business become a hell of a value to us in our service businesses too. Right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I would say, and being familiar with what Austin's done, that innovation cycle, just because you were successful doing it one way historically doesn't automatically, mean that you're going to continue to be successful in looking at new ways, leveraging technology to look at, the problems you're trying to solve for customers differently. Yes, I mean, you can innovate, you can go faster, deliver, like we talk a lot about time to value, to delivering solutions to our clients faster, at a lower price point. And that's just what's great about all the innovation going on, in the tech space. And your clients will, they're getting more technically savvy as well. And if you don't continue to push them on their innovation, they might look for other partners to work with. So
and they should, right?
Yeah.
They really should. And if you have guts in your business, I tell my customers all the time, they're my friends too, right? Our customers that do business with us consistently are very good friends of ours. And we tell them, Austin, I know says the same thing I do. If we are not your best provider, if you don't feel that we're working hard to be the very best in the world at what we do, then fire us, because we want to be your friend first. We can't be your friend if you can't go to your boss or you can't go to your investors to say that Rabine is the best, right? And again, if you look at it that way, once you're friends with the customer, they'll give you a second chance if they don't feel like you're striving to be the best. If you're not striving to give them the best quality, the best productivity, and what something you said a minute ago, time to value. Okay, I believe that many businesses work really hard to really deliver time to value. But I believe that many of us included in some of our businesses, do a terrible job at actually defining that time to value if we're 5% more than a competitor, right? So often I see companies, and I bought a company like this. They were amazing when it came to the productivity. They're in and out on jobs so fast and high quality, and yet they sold to be competitive, even the cheapest in the marketplace, and they struggle to make the profit they should make. And we do a better job with that today in that company, but not as good as we should. Right? I mean, if we really could show the time to value and if you're the highest productive company in your space, it's extremely big. It's not 5 or 10% difference in the cost to do that business. It's probably 50% better, right? And again, showing that though, it's we've struggled, and many companies I think struggle. Where have you found you've had success with that, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about, what are the business outcomes from a successful project of ours. And like you said, Gary, a lot of it is hard, hard to quantify, especially the efficiency gains. So like at least in a IT project-based world, getting the right benchmarks up front are critical to knowing, what the current state is. So then when you're done, you can measure against, where the improvements are. But even having said that, the real measuring should happen 6 and 12 months after we've delivered a project. So you really see how well does this stuff work when the consultants have left the building.
And are they using it, right? Are they using it? Do they like it? Because and you deal with the same thing we do, I know, where we're dealing with people that are my age, your age, or younger than Austin in their 20s, let's say, right? And so you look at that. There's different views they're forming these opinions of good, great, or not as far as the product you're delivering. And so how you deliver that product to be best for that person and that with their technology ability or whatever is key. And we found, again, back to that feedback loop, if we were really good in the feedback loop, we'll say, okay, that guy's like, Austin, that guy can figure it out. He has fun with all these tools. He kicks ass with all of it, right? So he's having fun with it. He's easy. That guy's like Gary, a dumb shit, hillbilly that never really dealt with a lot of technology, but he likes these two things as far as the product, and he can use those efficiently, right? And so either way, you got to be able to please that guy like me, the upper 50s guy, to the mid 30s guy or girl, to the 20s girl, right? And I think that's so important, and I'm sure that you guys deal with it every day, right?
We're dealing with a wide spectrum of constituents, that's for sure. And especially, some of our global clients, just the variance of like what's required in North America versus what do you want in India versus Europe and age different. I mean, it's a challenge to to say the least. But good consultants, if you ask the right questions, you can really get to what are the key deliverables, the key business outcomes that you're shooting for.
And that's so undervalued also, Jay, asking the right questions, right? Sometimes we ask questions that we think we're going to get the answers we want to hear, right? And we probably do, but do we ask the right questions that maybe get us answers we might not want to hear, but are probably the best opportunities for improvement?
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, I on that note, I like what you had said earlier about your customers being your friends, in the dialogue that you have with them, because our company motto is all business is personal. And this I attribute to my dad, having small town values where he would say the best business deal is done over a handshake, not a legal contract, um, dealt with someone, because when you deliver a successful project, you're impacting not only the company they work for, but you're impacting that person's life probably too. Successful project, maybe you get a special bonus, a raise, promotion, who knows, and just realizing how important it is to develop those relationships, because in our world, especially dealing with technology, it doesn't always go as planned. And
Yeah.
when you've developed that relationship, it's so critical to success.
100%, 100%. When you guys, do you guys ever do business on a handshake?
We've done some things, I guess our terminology, we call that at risk, where we don't have everything buttoned up appropriately at the beginning, but usually, by the end of the project, we will have something in place just because their compliance more than anything.
Well, and I would love. I was the same way. In my first, I don't know, 10 years of my business for sure. Handshake, 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 right? But it's not just the fact that somebody is out to get somebody, because that's not. I think that's the minimum, right? It might be a few percent of people are actually out to cheat somebody else, right? If you're at the high end, or just want to win lose, whatever. Maybe there's a percentage of people want to win lose, and it might be a higher percentage of 20-30% of people out there, right? But I just think that just good business lays out everything clearly, defines it, goes back and forth to define it all over again, to make sure that there's clarity in what you're delivering and what the customer is getting, right? And so that's the necessary evil of a contract, I think, is there because of those reasons more than anything. Not that you don't trust somebody, they don't trust you. Clarity in messaging or clarity in the contract and messaging is so important, right?
Yeah. What my dad used to say, whenever you have to get the contract out, then something's wrong if you can't.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so when you look at you're a young guy still. You're building your second business, and it's going great. You're kicking butt. Your the accolades on J Labs is I see all over the place on the best of this, the best of that, and world's greatest technology advisor by this magazine or that magazine, all these crazy things, right? Which is awesome. Congratulations. But what do you see? I mean, you're a young guy. Where are you going, man? Where do you want to be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Where do you see J Labs, and where do you see Spaulding Ridge? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a little hard to say like where we're going to be 10 years from now, but I think certainly the next 5 years from now, the level of technology innovation is just going to be incredible. What AI is going to be able to do sort of at scale. And so I'm excited to see that part of kind of the practitioner in me. Is very excited about that. And I think, Spaulding Ridge, we could grow this thing to be $1 billion in revenue, company, consulting firm someday. We think that's possible in the markets that we play. As much as I've enjoyed starting two companies, I think, you know, two is enough. I would say I think I know enough that, you know, just because I've done it now twice doesn't automatically mean be successful a third time. But I worry about my industry a little bit. You know, professional service businesses are so about relationships and people, and like all this work from home stuff, you know, I do have a strong opinion on that, and I know maybe goes a little bit against the grain, but I think relationships are best developed uh, face to face and in person. And so I wonder in my industry, who are the going to be the leaders of these firms 5, 10 years from now, where they've put the time in getting to know uh, clients, getting to know their peers, and just developing the kind of relationships that you need to be successful. I really worry about that because I know many of my best clients, they're people I've known for 15, 20 years that have kind of moved up in the organizations that they're a part of. And, you know, I've just spent a lot of time with them. And so I do worry where this industry is going to go if we don't have a little more return to normalcy of being together in person.
Yeah, well, and I'm looking from the outside. I wouldn't worry about you. I look at you as if you needed money, you're the type of guy I want to invest in because you get it. Okay, you understand the importance of connectivity, emotional intelligence, right, and all that. And I know we do too. You know, we do have people that work from home more than ever before, but yet not as much as many companies that do some of the stuff we do. Because we believe, like you believe, that relationships are the most important thing. And boy, you know what? Face to face, getting to know those people around you, getting to trust your team, knowing that they have your back. I mean, it just doesn't happen over screens. So I agree. I believe that that's going to be. I believe in differentiation and anything I can do to differentiate. Well, you know, differentiation, in my opinion, in the next 10 years, you be those companies that keep a strong culture of people that enjoy that, right? People that have the emotional intelligence to connect with each other and like that and thrive on that. And guess what? Those are the same people, in my opinion, they're gonna build the best relationships, best customer relationships, the best vendor relationships, and those are gonna be companies that kick ass in the future. Now, unfortunately, there's gonna be a lot of companies like you mentioned though that are gonna fall by the wayside. They're gonna get weaker, and they're not gonna be able to survive, in my opinion, because they're gonna go by the way of the you know, today's culture. And in my opinion, and unfortunately, some of today's culture is gonna show weakness in building things and businesses and such. So I wouldn't worry about you because you're focused on it, you're worried about it. So it's like when I raised kids, building my family, my wife and I worried about our kids because we saw people ruining their kids with wealth, and we didn't have wealth at the time, but we worried about it. And when we did have wealth, we were very conscious of it. And if you meet any of my 4 kids, you'll understand they've never had any handed to them, and they never will. And knowing that they're gonna be independently strong, independently smart, and they're gonna survive. They're gonna be survivors compared to if we would just given them everything they asked for, everything they would want in life, right? So I think if we worry about things in a productive way, of course, like you do and I do, I think good things happen. And I think you're right on course to being even stronger in your industry and weaker because you're going to continually build your culture based on relationships.
Well, we like to think that the right kind of people will opt in to what we're trying to build and how we're trying to build it versus, you know, maybe getting caught up in, you know, what the latest, you know, news story is on you know, some elaborate work from home arrangement. You know, we feel like the right people are opting into our company. So
Yeah, it might be tougher to find people too, right? We find that, hey, we're getting people that are saying, hey, I can do that job and I want to work for the Rabine Group, but I want to work 5 days from home. And you know what? If you need me to come in once a month, I'll come in once a month. Well, these are jobs that we actually need them on the job, or we need them in the office every day, right? So we know that's not going to be a fit, and that's okay, right? But I believe that we're seeing it now. We're going to see it in the near future that it's going to be tougher to find those people. But once you find them, man, what a value, right? What an amazing value they become because they're going to connect better with everybody around them, their customers and vendors. And it's the most important, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Having the patience and the discipline to wait for the right person that, is going to be a good part of your culture, although it's hard to do, especially when you've got a job that needs to start and you want to find someone to put out there. But to have the discipline to wait for someone that is going to be an asset long term.
Yeah. So I've heard a bunch of things, but I mean, when you think of differentiation and how you've differentiated from the competition to be successful, what do you feel are some of the the highlights of your career in your first business or this business, Spaulding Ridge, that have really defined you as somebody different, you personally and your businesses?
Yeah, so it's Spaulding Ridge. We compete now mostly with the big firms, so like Deloitte, Accenture, KPMG, and so we really rely on this all business is personal concept, and working on developing real and genuine relationships with the clients. We like to say we can't rely on the logo on our business card. It's about the name on the business card, where I think in many cases the large firms will just say, well, hey, I'm Deloitte, so whatever I'm going to say must, mean that it's, the greatest advice ever. And look, I love Deloitte. It's a great firm, but I'm just saying from a competitive perspective, we have kind of the scrappiness that when our clients get to know us and understand what our knowledge and what our know-how is, we like our odds. And also what's a little bit different, how we differentiate is we have very loose practice areas, which is not common in consulting, where we have some of our consultants can work with 5 or 6 different technologies as opposed to kind of making them specialize on one. It's frankly easier to scale if you focus on just one. But we like this broader, this kind of broader concept because the clients, they're actually looking for more of that broader advice. They want to understand how their technology that you're implementing, how it fits into their broader infrastructure. And when you only know 1 or maybe 2 things well, it's hard to give good advice and how that broader picture comes together. So I would say that's when you think of Spaulding Ridge, like that's our kind of angle on how we compete with the large firms.
I love it. Yeah. Also, I look at large companies. I'm investing in I would say, small businesses and some startups and things like that. But I want to invest in non-woke companies. And when I look at the competitors for you, they're woke companies, in my opinion, right? And woke means to me, it's somebody that gets caught up in whatever the latest thing is in the culture in the world, and not always aligning with what makes great people, integrity, and all the values I want. So, I believe you're one of your biggest, in my opinion, differentiators is, if you can be that company that builds relationships, trusting relationships, family atmosphere, and you're different from the woke companies. It's going to be a big asset to you in the long run. And as you grow, it's tougher to stay that way as you grow because some bigger companies you might do business with might not like that. But
well, for us, it's like we want to do what's right for us, and that's not always fits in a definition that someone in the media or wants to make. And once again, I don't mean to disparage the large firms because they've obviously had some success in building great businesses, but just because they do it one way doesn't mean that's the right way for us. We have to do what's right for our company and for our culture.
Yep, you're not subservient to your stock value today and tomorrow. I mean, or your stockholders or people buying puts on you or whatever. I mean, you're dealing with stockholders that are close to you, yourself and others, let's say, right, your other partners, and you're serving them and your customers first, right? You don't have to worry about global society and whatever, which could be a huge advantage for you comparably, to the big guys.
Yeah, well, I think, like you, our equity, setup is, it's all owned by the employees. So, as long as we're doing right by the employees, they're in our clients, obviously our clients pay the bills, but, we don't have to answer to external shareholders. And it's the same way I set up my first company. And I'll just say, if I ever did a third company, I would do it the same way. So.
Okay, so when you look at this growth you had, if everybody looks from the outside, they're gonna say, that Jay Laabs, he's got a horseshoe in his butt, man. He's just lucky. That guy's a lucky guy. Anything he touches turns to gold. I mean, but we all know that as we build businesses, we have tough times that come and go, and hopefully they go, and good times come again, right? If they don't take us out. Tell us about some tough times you've had in business that most people would not know that Jay, this successful dude, has had and had to get through, right? What created your intelligence today that you probably didn't have in the past because you learned from some tough times?
Well, I've made my fair share of mistakes. That's for sure. In the first business, we made a couple mistakes that were almost put us out of business. And the big one was we tried to expand into Asia, and this would have been in the kind of 2008, 2009 range when China really started to get kind of rolling. And, although that was kind of the popular thing to do, and you can, by listening to what I've said, you can probably tell now I go against that grain a little bit. Well, one of the reasons why I go against that grain is because we tried that whole China Asia thing and it was a complete disaster. I'll spare you all the details as far as like what we did and how it got messed up, but we lost a bunch of money not understanding how hard it is to do business outside of the US. I think sometimes Americans take for granted how easy it is to do business, like relatively speaking, to some of these other places. And we couldn't get ourselves paid. We had no recourse. It was just a complete disaster. And so in this company, although we have expanded globally, we've been much more measured as far as how we've done it. We've been careful to work in countries that we understand really well, that we have the right leaders in place. But these are all learnings from major mistakes in the first company.
Absolutely. I mean, if you thought you had a younger you that's starting up tomorrow in a technology consulting, and you invested them, you're on their board. What's let's say one or two simple things you tell them to think about as they grow.
So my kind of always advice to entrepreneurs is like you split the job into two pieces. There's the product or service, whatever you're delivering. And then the other 50% is your go-to-market, your sales strategy. And I think the sales part of it often is wildly underlooked or overestimated. You get a lot of entrepreneurs, or like in my world, smart consultants that think just because they're smart that they can set up a business and everyone's going to want to hire them. And that's just not the case. You can build a reputation maybe over time, but figuring out what that go-to-market is, what makes you unique, what your differentiators are, how you're actually going to execute on closing business is where you have to spend just as much time as whatever your product and service is.
Absolutely. I agree. I like it. Now, tell me about your family.
Yep. So I have 3 kids that keep me very busy, 13, 11, and 7. We're having fun with all their different activities and sports, and I always coach one team a season, so I like to stay connected that way, and being a father's been great.
Awesome. And would you want your kids to be entrepreneurs, or what are you going to tell them, or they're old enough already. What do you tell them at the dinner table about the beauty of this entrepreneurial life?
Well, Gary, my 13-year-old daughter, after taking her to a YPO event, on the drive home afterwards, she told me, Dad, I want to be in YPO too. And I was like, oh, that's great. But she's like, but Dad, through my own company, not anything of yours.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
That's
yeah, we'll see what Elizabeth can do. I'd love to see her start a company someday.
well, you know what? With your positivity, I mean, you go home at night, have dinner with the family, and you talk. You have fun when you talk about your friends at work and your customers you love serving and all that. I didn't talk to my kids about that they must be entrepreneurs or anything. We constantly said, hey, you got to do what you're going to be happy doing, no matter what it is. If you're going to work for somebody or do your own thing. But I told stories at the dinner table and all that a lot, and my kids all gravitated to wanting to be in business. And it's been fun to watch them pick their own roadmaps. But it's a blessing when they do fall into your own industry or your own business. But if they don't, and I've got a mix of both of these. When they don't, that's kind of cool too, to watch them start their own thing and build their own stuff, right? So I think yeah. So I think some people go too far one way or another, right? Where they're stay out of my business. Don't this dirty asphalt business. You don't want any part of it, right? But man, you know what? It can be really good for some people. And then you know what? Someday this will all be yours. Someday when you graduate college, you're gonna come to work for me, and it's gonna be a beautiful thing. Your brothers and sisters are too. I mean, that either way is not good in my opinion. It's guiding them properly without pigeonholing them, right? In my opinion.
Yeah, it's a tough one. My father grew up in a family business that actually went sideways. So the business didn't exist when he got of the age to be a part of the cheese business. And I've kind of always, from hearing all the stories, kind of carried that with me that, they want to do something, I'll be very supportive of them doing it, but just going to let them choose their own path.
Absolutely. So tell me what inspired. I read something where you went on a trip and it inspired you to found Spaulding Ridge. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in the time that I wasn't working and kind of trying to figure out what was next, I went on a volunteer trip with my mom. So my mom was a retired social worker, and we went on a trip in Nicaragua to it was a group of women that ran a community center. Nicaragua was so poor that public school is only half day long, and so the other half of the day these kids would go to these community centers to get some education, but really more to keep them out of trouble and give them a meal. And we volunteered, and just what these ladies were doing with such little money was eye-opening. But the real kicker for me, Gary, was we went to one of the kids' homes, and it's one of these dirt floor kind of tin shack, and literally as far as the eye could see, like that's all that it was in the shanty town. And I just walked away from it. I said to my mom, I need to do something about this. And we talked about it, and she said, well, you're actually good at business. If you create a business, you can create jobs, where you add to the tax base. If you're doing well, you can be philanthropic if that's, what you choose. But, more or less to be a productive member of society, go create some jobs. And that was really the start of Spaulding Ridge. And interestingly, the guy that led the trip is now one of my VPs in my people organization. So I had to bring him over to help me do this too. But yeah, the trip and just kind of seeing that poverty, really wanted me to go create another business.
I love it. And where'd the name come from?
Well, Spaulding Ridge is the little hill in west central Wisconsin where I grew up. So to me, it's a daily reminder of the way business should be done.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, now tell me where do you gain your customers? You guys spend a bunch of money in marketing, all door-to-door sales. I mean, how do you go after and gain your customers, educate them on who you are and why they should use you?
We have very little external sales. We, our group of partners, there's probably like 25 or so senior people who they generate most of the business, and that's through either their contacts or partnering with some of these different cloud vendors. So like partnering with Salesforce, if they're going to, sell some licenses, they might recommend, Spaulding Ridge to help implement Salesforce. So some of the business comes in that way, but the majority of it is through our own kind of personal books of business. And I will say, I think we have a pretty good digital marketing game that has helped us quite well build up our brand in a short period of time.
Cool. All right, so tell me this. It sounds like your dad was an awesome mentor. Your parents, right? Awesome mentors. You talk about him if you want to, but otherwise, what are the mentors in your life that you still look back and think about as you make decisions, and continue to mentor others?
Yeah, well, really, my parents, as I've already mentioned a lot, but so much of how I do business, how I treat people, how I think about the world, it comes from both my mom and dad, hugely influential in the value of hard work, the value of treating people well, just being decent, productive members of society. My dad always liked to talk about, adding to the tax base was always a big thing for him. But outside of the, my parents, one mentor when I already was a CEO who made me, I'll say, feel more comfortable in my own skin where it's lonely at the top is someone that I know very well, and that's Ed Zeman. So
Eddie's
yes.
the best. Me, I was with Eddie here a bunch in the last couple of weeks. He's in my forum and just a spectacular guy, isn't he? One of the best.
Well, I spent a little over a year with him in forum, and a lot of lessons to be learned from being comfortable in your own skin and kind of following what your path is, even if it's maybe not the most traditional path. I attribute that to Ed.
100%. He's one of my best friends, and I gain a lot out of him as my buddy and mentor also, right? I think the best thing is when we have friends we love so much, we kind of mentor each other. We call each other and mentor each other and all that. But yeah, Ed's one of the best, and I think it's those type of people, right, that we have the most fun being mentored by. Those that tell it all and aren't shy about talking about their blind spots they found, right, and the tough times they've had. And again, Ed's one of the best. So yeah, any other YPOers you've been around that become that too?
Well, I always like to hear Paul Darley speak. I don't know if I go as far to say he's like a mentor, but I've gone to some in the boardrooms, had dinner with him a few times, and always really like and look forward to what he has to say. I would say kind of most of the people that I look up to are the greater YPO, Windy City Alumni Network, which you're a part of, Gary.
Yeah, no, and again, I've got the same thing. I've got these people that I joined YPO. I think I was 41, and had some older guys that were just getting 50ing out and stuff like that. I became friends with. The same thing, right? When somebody's been there and done it before, and you respect who they are personally, it's really easy to connect with them and then ask them for a little bit of mentorship. But yeah, so Paul is one of my other top 10 buddies. So you're mentioning, and again, I think that's an important thing in life, right? Surround yourself with 10 people or 5 people, whatever the number is, that you can stomach as great friends that you're going to do anything for. With people that you want to you want to be the average of, right? If you think about the people you surround yourself with, from your wife and your best of friends, right? You want to make sure you surround yourself with people you would be proud to be the average of, right? And boy, it's amazing if you think that way, how nice your life could turn out, or what great things can happen in your life. Because if those are the people you spend all your time with, or most of your time with as friends and family, then you just naturally rise to that level, whether it be average or top of that or whatever. And my top 10 friends are friends that I love a lot, that I know I would go through a black wall for. And I think they do the same thing for me. And I know you're the same way. That's what makes life awesome, right?
Yeah. Well, when you're in the middle of the pack, it's kind of hard to be picked off, by that stray, lion that's waiting for the scragglers. Staying in the middle of the pack's a good place to be.
Yeah, and well, and also in the middle of the pack, and if it's a pack that has no animosity towards other people's success, that only admires and pats on the back when their success, instead of having any envy, right? What you learn in your life is there's sometimes as you struggle, the best of friends are there with you. As you have your best times, the best of friends are with you to pat you on the back and be proud of you, right? Sometimes you'll run across people that aren't there for you in the toughest times, and those probably are those same friends that aren't as excited as those good friends when you're having great times, right? So that I think life is about identifying those friends in life that are there for you in the toughest times and the best times, right? And I think you're a little younger than me, but I think when you get to be when I was your age or my age, right, you start really figuring that out more than anything else. It's kind of fun.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Okay, so if we look at if we think about your industry compared to my industry, what do you feel like differentiates the road in entrepreneurship when you have a technology businesses like yourself, a dirty business like some of mine, retail businesses? What's something that you think ties them all together? No matter if somebody's listening right now and they're in a totally different industry, give me one thing that you think is the glue behind just great business and great business building.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all about your people. You're plain and simple. I mean, I am a people organization. We are a people organization, but
yeah, I agree.
I mean, you can accomplish amazing things when you have the right, group of leaders around you, regardless if it's product or service or whatever it is.
100%, Jay. I agree. And I can think of a few different things, but people is the most important, right? If we look at people and we say we want to pay the least amount of money for average people, okay, you're going to have a bad to average company that nobody's going to want to deal with, right? You can say, I want the very best people, and I want to pay them fair and maybe more than anybody else in my industry, right? If they are who I think they are, you're gonna have a great company as long as your customers can realize that the quality of people. And I think if our customers are if we have a business that culturally attaches our teammates to our customers and keeps them in front of them, they'll realize that and they'll want to do business with you over that lower cost provider, right? So
absolutely. Our clients can feel the kind of people that we hire, no doubt about that.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. Hey, well, you know what? I got Chris on the line here. Chris is my producer, as you met him earlier, and Chris is a great guy that kind of takes notes of what he pulls out as nuggets for success, and we like to do that. And I know there's a ton of stuff out here because I heard. Let me. Hey, Chris, get on here. But what I heard a few things that I look at as as differentiators and nuggets for success. But selling time to value to a customer is a big deal, and I think so many of us do a bad job of that. And you mentioned it, and Jay, it came out to me because that's something I know. If you can define using great data or whatever, what creates better value in your business proposition, your value proposition than your competition by saving them time, right? That's a big deal. So that's one thing I saw. The hungry, humble, and smart, in my opinion, is genius. If you surround yourself with teammates that are hungry, humble, and smart, you're going to win always. So those are a couple of things I found. Chris, what else do you come up with there, buddy?
Yeah, definitely. Jay, you're an incredible resource of entrepreneurial wisdom, man. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us. Your story is really incredible.
You're too kind.
So, right off the bat, we always love to learn about our guests' upbringing and childhood. And it sounds like baling hay and working on a fox farm can prepare you for almost anything the entrepreneurial world can throw at you. So,
I
uh,
agree.
we appreciate that. Gary, you actually shared this. You'll learn some of the best lessons in life on minimum wage jobs. I think that's really important to look at. Um, uh, Jay, you said the first thing with the new business is define values and don't waver from them. I think that's a very easy mistake to make. You define these incredible values, and you're like, well, we need the money, so let's not follow them, and that leads down some rough paths. It sounds like.
And I would say along with that, Chris, is culture forward is what Jay talked about. Culture will drive strategy. Most
Yeah,
companies think that way from the start, but boy, when you do, good things happen. So I think it's a
yeah,
big deal.
yeah. And to piggyback on that, when hiring people, screen for culture above skills, and aim for people who are hungry, humble, and smart. I think
Yep.
that's incredibly valuable insight there. Make customers into friends because all business is personal.
Yep. All business is personal is a great takeaway because you're exactly
Yeah,
right. A lot of
yeah,
people don't think that way.
yeah. Yeah, you said the best business deals are over a handshake, not a legal document. So that really goes in line with that. Relationships are best developed face to face. We live in an increasingly Zoom focused world, but you know, I think when it comes down to it, it's who do you have the best relationship with, and how do you make that relationship as great as possible, and it's usually face to face. Oh, I love this point you had on, because you guys do compete with some really big players in your space. You said to compete with the biggest competitors in your industry, rely on the name on your business card, not the logo.
And Jay didn't say this, but I said this. Stay away from being woke. Compete with those woke companies. And I know it's hard to say that because so many some of our customers out there don't look at it as that and stuff. But you know what? Stay nimble and stay non-woke, and you're going to kick the crap out of the competitor. Those big competitors.
Hmm. Yeah, amen. And you touched on something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs in America kind of lose sight of or never realize is just how much easier it is to do business in America than it is to do in other countries. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like, oh, we'll just expand overseas to Asia, whatever. It'll be just like here. And I mean, you're living proof that that was, far more difficult than anticipated. So we really need to, cherish and protect our business environment in America.
Yes, I had tried to forget my doing business in China, but you guys had me have to remember that painful memory today.
Sorry to make you relive it, but our, us and our listeners appreciate it for sure.
So Jay, thanks so much for being here, buddy. One last question I'll say. Give me one thought of what you want your legacy to be. One statement that you want people to maybe to say about you when you're retired. You're living on your island somewhere, right? Or you're on your last days of your life, right? What do you want people to be saying about J Laabs?
Well, just that I might have helped them, take one step forward in their life, whether it be career, professional, personal. If I could just have a little bit of impact on, making their life better, making the world better, then, I'm not sure what else I could ask for.
I love it. So delivering a positive impact to individuals all over.
Yeah.
I love it, buddy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
Jay,
Jay,
real quick before we let you go, where can people find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, so we're at spauldingridge.com. We have a very active LinkedIn page. I would probably say that it's better to go to Spaulding Ridge on LinkedIn to learn about all the great stuff that's going on at Spaulding Ridge.
And who are your, and we talked about it a little bit, but tell me about the target customer. If you're going to grow 3 more customers in the next month through Ditch Digger CEO listeners, right? What are those 3 businesses, those 3 customers, type of customers you want to see?
Well, for us, it's not so much size or vertical. It's really about what I would call cloud modernization. If you're trying to figure out, how to take more advantage of the cloud, and whether it's kind of a CFO set of solutions, a CRO set of solutions, or a CIO set of solutions, we kind of work with all those different offices.
Okay. And what, so the size of companies, so what's your average size?
We see, this is tough. We work with a lot of, kind of call it 30, $40 million companies all the way up to 30, $40 billion companies, and in between. It just depends.
Size doesn't matter.
Correct.
All right, cool. Well, Jay, it's a blessing having you on today, man. It's good hearing your story. I knew a little bit about it. I've got many friends that love you as a friend, and I really appreciate you. And you've enhanced our podcast to be even better with a quality guy like you. So thanks a lot for being on, man.
Well, no, thank you for including me. Many of the people that have gone before me, it's an honor to be associated with all you guys. So thank you for that.
You're awesome, buddy. So thanks for everybody for tuning in to Ditch Digger CEO. And thank you, Jay Laabs. You're awesome, man.
Well, thank you, Gary. Thanks, Chris.